Natural disasters are large-scale geological events that can cause loss of life or property. Those who experience a natural disaster can experience emotional distress and anxiety. So what are some natural disasters that have affected the city of Tucson, Arizona in the past or may affect the city in the future? Hey everyone, it's Kimberly, your go-to real estate agent in Tucson, Arizona, and today we are talking about natural disasters that have touched the city of Tucson or the region in the past and those that may affect the city in the future. If you experienced a natural disaster in this city in your lifetime, please comment below and let us know your story. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to follow along, and of course you can check out over 100 videos on this channel about things to do and see and know about Tucson, Arizona, my hometown. And when you're ready to buy or sell real estate here, I'd love to help you find a place. All my contact information is in the description below each video on this channel. People move to Tucson from all over the world, primarily for our weather, our dry heat, our stunning sunsets, and our mountain play parks. But many people overlook the history of natural disasters when they are trying to pick a place to live. The most common type of natural disaster reported in all of the United States is severe storms and floods. But what about in Tucson? According to Sperling's Best Places, which is a publisher of city rankings, Tucson ranked low on the scale of hazards. But there's still a few natural disasters you should be aware of if you're considering moving here, and I saved the biggest risk for last, so make sure you're sticking around to the end of this video for all of that. Here I'm going to go down the list of all natural disasters and discuss how each of them affects Tucson, Arizona, if at all. I want to start off by talking about fires and wildfires, because this may be one of the top questions I get about Tucson, Arizona from buyers moving here from other places. Many people are moving here from other places and states that have experienced extreme loss due to wildfires, and it seems only natural to assume that a dry desert with minimal rain would also fall victim to fires regularly. I can tell you as a born and raised Tucsonan, and I'm 41 years old, that I've personally lived through 3 wildfires just outside of the city of Tucson in my lifetime, and all of those took place in the Santa Catalina Mountains north of Tucson. One was 2 years ago in 2020, and that was the Bighorn Fire that was brought on when lightning struck the mountain and burned almost 120,000 acres. Hundreds of homes were threatened and many were evacuated, but to my knowledge, none were lost. The other fire was the Aspen Fire on Mount Lemmon in 2003, which burned about 85,000 acres of land and destroyed 340 homes and businesses in the town of Summer Haven on the top of the mountain. The much smaller Bullock Fire in May 2002 led to Mount Lemmon evacuation and about 30,000 acres burned, but no loss of buildings that I'm aware of. Although the smoke was bad and it was sad to see our beautiful mountains on fire, thankfully no one was killed in any fire, and to my knowledge no one was injured, although I'm sure many animals on the mountain lost their homes. Other than those fires, my research found an additional 4 wildfires within 50 miles of Tucson that have occurred between 1950 and 2010. Arizona has plenty of open land, and there are plenty of fires that happen in our states or even neighboring states. So some years we do get smoke here when it comes from other places, but I'm thankful to say that in my lifetime, Tucson and the surrounding areas just have not experienced that much loss or destruction due to wildfires. Of course, this doesn't mean that it can never happen, because we are a dry desert here, and anyone who's camping needs to be careful when they're putting out their campfires, and smoking cigarettes on a desert trail is never a good idea. But fortunately, we just haven't seen that many large, devastating fires, at least in the past 70 years or so. Let's get a few out of the way that are probably more obvious. Everyone knows that Tucson is a hot, dry desert, so it shouldn't surprise you we have almost no cold-related natural disasters here historically, although it does get a little chilly here and it occasionally snows and it freezes almost every winter, several nights overnight. So I wanted to address a few things that have happened within 50 miles of the city of Tucson from the years 1950 until 2010. Not surprisingly, there have been 0 avalanches. However, there's been 1 reported blizzard and and 1 day of extreme cold. Maybe it was the same day, I don't know. There have been 2 days of extreme dense fog. And of course, keep in mind that these are reported incidences that took place within 50 miles of the city of Tucson within the years 1950 to 2010. We have seen 144 instances of extreme hail. We have actually seen 28 days of heavy snow. We have had no ice storms and only 9 winter storms that were considered harsh. To summarize, it's probably obvious, but we don't have a lot of cold-related natural disasters here, although we do get a little chilly in the winter time. Now, let's talk about hurricanes and tropical storms. No surprise, we have no instances of hurricanes or tropical storms in the last 70 years within 50 miles of Tucson. We have also had 0 instances of high surf. Moving on to volcanoes. While Tucson has no active volcanoes in the vicinity, most of the Tucson mountains are volcanic in origin. Does that mean that Tucson could fall victim to a volcanic eruption one day? Probably not. The volcano index value from USA.com's website is calculated based on the currently known volcanoes. The higher the volcano index value, the higher the chance of a region being affected by a possible volcano eruption. The volcano index value for Tucson is 0.0000. So the chances of a volcanic eruption in the area of Tucson doesn't get too much lower than that. What about tornadoes? Also using the index value calculated based on historical tornado events, we see that a higher tornado index value means a higher chance of tornado events in the region. While the US as a whole has a tornado index value of 136.45, the state of Arizona has a much lower index of 22.18, and the city of Tucson's even lower than that at only 20.35. Earthquakes are also extremely rare. The chance of an earthquake damage in Tucson is about the same as Arizona average and is much lower than the national average. The earthquake index value, which indicates a higher chance of an earthquake in the region, is 1.81 for the United States as a whole, but in Arizona it's considerably lower at 0.13, and for the city of Tucson, it's only 0.00. So we obviously don't have many wildfires, cold weather related natural disasters, hurricanes, volcanoes, tornadoes, or earthquakes. So here are a couple things weather and nature related that you do have to be aware of if you're planning on coming here. And again, the last item mentioned in this video is one that almost no one knows about and I almost never get asked about, but it is by far Tucson's biggest nature related risk. Before I get into the last item, I wanted to discuss dust storms, extreme heat, and drought. I get these questions about these items all the time. We are a dry desert after all. Let's talk about dust storms. There's always a breeze in Tucson, and my research on weatherspark.com showed that our monthly averages are 6 to 9 mile per hour winds, with April being the windiest month of the year. Of course, it can get much windier than that, and if we haven't had much rain, that could lead to dust storms that aren't fun to drive in or walk in or ride bikes in. A haboob is a huge dust storm created from the airflow of a thunderstorm. The winds driving the haboob will reach 30 miles per hour and blow dust up to 10,000 feet into the air. They can be destructive and dangerous, but are primarily seen in the Phoenix area, taking place about 1 to 3 times a year in Phoenix and the nearby areas. But the mountain ranges surrounding Tucson create a natural wall that stop most of those extreme winds. Tucson has not experienced the Arizona haboobs the way that Phoenix has. We may have seen some mild haboobs throughout the years, but nothing like our neighbors to the north. I would caution anyone driving the stretch of freeway between Tucson and Phoenix to be careful during those higher risk months. I drive everywhere, and to this day in all my life, the worst Arizona dust storms I've ever driven in were on the road from Tucson to Phoenix, not in Tucson itself. The worst dust storm I've actually ever experienced in my life was randomly in Colorado. It wasn't even in my state. Extreme heat is defined as a period of at least 2 to 3 days of high heat with temperatures above 90 degrees. And I will tell you, we have plenty of those here in Tucson each summer. Usually every day in summer is over 90 degrees, sometimes even in the fall and spring, although those times of year are usually much better. Keep in mind that we aren't a high humidity city, so it's not so much the hard to breathe feeling, it's more like baking in an oven feeling. Heat disorders strike when people spend too much time in the heat or or overexert themselves. But in my research, Arizona as a state typically isn't even in the top 10 hottest states listed. Or if it is, it's often ranked the number 10th spot, with states like Florida, Hawaii, Louisiana, Texas, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, and Arkansas all coming up as higher heat on average across their state. The nice thing about Arizona is that there are tons of mountainous areas with higher elevation that you can escape to when the heat gets too unbearable. There are several towns and cities just a 2 to 4 hour drive from Tucson where the weather is easily 10 to 20 degrees cooler at any given time. Many Tucsonans go on vacation altogether during the summer. Many go up to Mount Lemmon to camp, where the temperature is typically 20 degrees cooler than in the city. I have other videos on this channel about staying cool in Tucson summers, so check those out after this one. But I always recommend you drink tons of water year-round actually, because we are dry here. Plus watch your skin in the heat, make sure you stay in shaded areas, make sure your air conditioner is working well in time for summer. Make sure you're not overdoing it in the summer when you're outside. Many workers in the trades, such as roofers and construction trades, begin work early in the summertime and finish up between noon or 2 p.m. And I don't blame them. It's important to stay out of that high sunshine and afternoon heat. Just remember, we usually get our monsoons in July and August. That cools down the desert but makes it more humid, so there's the trade-off. Now on to drought. I talk about this in a lot of videos, and I actually have a video coming out on this channel soon about water and drought and everything that Arizona and the city of Tucson are doing to deal with it and prepare for it getting worse. But the bottom line is this: Arizona and the city of Tucson are growing in population. We, along with several neighboring states, get our water from the Colorado River for the most part. And according to American Rivers, the Colorado River will have a 10 to 30% flow reduction by 2050 due to climate change. We're in a drought, and we have been in a drought since the 1990s. My whole entire life, I've been raised to be very water conscientious, just like most Tucsonans, and the city of Tucson does a lot of things to reduce, reuse, and store water. There are a lot of plans in place, and they are changing all the time. As the water from the Colorado River is depleted, water is going to get more expensive for agriculture in the state of Arizona and for Arizona residents most likely. Eventually, we might not be able to get our water from Colorado River anymore, but wherever we get it from, it will be quite expensive. It could be years from now, it could be decades from now, but even though Tucson is known for great monsoon seasons, and we do have mountains that get snow, and we get the runoff from those mountains each year, it isn't enough to sustain the water in the city. And drought is absolutely something that people should be aware of and should prepare for if they're moving to Tucson. One good place to start is to check out tucsonaz.gov/water to learn more about what the city is doing to combat the changes we see in our environment and prepare for water shortages. Finally, the biggest natural disaster in Tucson that causes by far the most destruction and damage of all nature-related events is flooding during monsoons and heavy rains or winter storms. The funny thing is that most people don't think this would ever be a problem in Tucson because we are a dry desert, but our rain hits hard and fast and can be very destructive. Arizona has this issue practically statewide, experiencing between 40 and 100 floods each year. Since 2010, Arizona has experienced 116 severe floods. I'll be coming out soon with a video about flooding, floodplains, erosion setbacks, and monsoon storms here in Tucson, so make sure you're subscribing to the channel to follow along with all of that. But here are a few things you should know if you're in Tucson during our high-risk monsoon months, or if you plan to buy a home here. Do watch the weather reports to see if extreme rains are predicted in the area. They can't predict everything, but it would be good to know. Do watch the skies during the day. If a big black cloud is moving straight toward you, you might want to prepare yourself to stay where you are for a while. Don't drive in an extreme monsoon if you get caught in one. Pull into a parking lot and wait it out. Seriously, I've gotten caught in some really bad ones in my day with zero visibility. They hit hard and they hit fast. They can be really dangerous to drive in. Do not go hiking, especially in the canyons or washes or at the base of the mountains if you think a monsoon might be rolling in. Just a week before this video was made, Tucson Fire Department had to rescue 25 hikers, including children and one infant, from Sabino Canyon when roaring waters reached 8 feet high and the hikers were trapped inside the canyon. Don't drive in washes during or even right after monsoon storms. Drivers have often tried to drive across the roads and had their cars carried away by the current. The scariest part of this is that visibility is often so bad you can't even see the washes as you approach them. That's why I say just play it safe, pull into a parking lot if you can, wait out the storm. People have drowned in their own cars waiting to be rescued. The fire department can't always reach you right away, especially when the roads to get you are flooded. If you're buying a home in Tucson or already own a home here, do understand what it means to be in a flood zone or floodplain or higher risk, and do get flood insurance if you are in one of those flood zones. Do make sure that you have proper grading for your home, making sure that the water rolls away from the house. Do inspect or have a roofer inspect your roof each year, several months before monsoon season, because roofers get very busy during the summer with all the emergency leaks. And do clear debris from gutters before monsoon season. I hope you've learned a little bit about natural disasters in and around the Tucson region in this video. We are fortunate that we are not affected by cold-related disasters or hurricanes or tornadoes or earthquakes, but it doesn't mean we don't have our environmental extremes. If you're a Tucsonan and have a story about a natural disaster here, please throw it down in the comments section below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to follow along with more videos about things to know about Tucson, Arizona. When you're ready to buy or sell a home here, please reach out to me. All my contact information is in the description below each video on this channel. We have over 100 videos on this channel all about things about Tucson. I really appreciate you hanging out with me today, and I will see you in the next Tucson video.